Over the last 8 months, I've been producing my most ambitious project yet with over 60 different animators, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did that, what mistakes I made along the way, and what I'm planning for next time. So last week I released Lots of Love, a collaborative animation project with over 60 motion designers and animators, each interpreting the theme of love. So I started recruiting people for this in last December, but the idea really started at the very beginning of last year. And I created this because the projects that I was working on weren't really very big or collaborative anymore. With a weekly YouTube schedule, all my projects tended to be pretty short, nothing taking more than a couple of days. So I missed that collaboration and working on something much larger. So this was a solution to remedy that. So my absolute favorite thing to animate is really small loops. So I thought together with a bunch of other motion designers and animators, we could combine our powers and create something big that's cohesive, but is made of these small little fun parts. And also when I'd see collaborative projects out in the wild that other people had made, I'd feel a little bit jealous and wish I'd been invited to collaborate as well. So I thought instead of waiting for that to happen, I'm gonna create my own. And I figured I could probably convince enough friends and peers to be part of this to justify it. So let's start by taking a look at the brief that I sent out to everyone. This document was first created in October last year, and I think I started sending it out to people in November, December last year. I call this Project Manticore 2020. So why a code name? I really like code names. I think they make it a really fun way to talk about a project. If you knew my work before YouTube, I call my YouTube project Project Hades. Greek myths are my go-to because they sound exceptionally cool. And if you don't know, a manticore is a mythical creature that combines the head of a man, the body of a lion. This actually isn't a good example. Let's pull up some better examples where we've got dragon's wings and a scorpion tail as well. See, these look pretty extreme. The ones with the man face tend to look a bit pathetic and not frightening at all, but more amusing. That's why I use this one in the brief here. And this was also practical because I didn't have the name for the project yet, and we just needed to talk about it without saying, that love collaboration. And also I want this to be a long-term thing. My plan is to produce a Project Manticore every year. So ideally that'll be a collaborative project at some scale, and I'd like to vary that and change it up, but this is the very first one, Manticore 2020. So what is it? It is a collaborative animation project, 30 plus incredible artists and animators interpreting a theme, 1.5 seconds of animation. That's the top line pitch. 30 plus animators became 60 plus animators in the final edit, so I did get more than I was asking for here. And the theme is love, any love. Love between people, clothes, chicken, animal, grilled chicken, art, fried chicken, interpret it any way you like. So originally, I think for months before I put this brief together, the theme was always going to be butts. In my head it was always, we'll collaborate on butts and I'll get 30 animators to animate a different butt. But then I kind of figured that's really opening myself up to a lot of trouble if someone takes a particularly edgy interpretation of that theme. I thought love would be a more appropriate one to start off the project at least. So the goals for the project: make something fun together, make a splash together on social media, promote other artists involved, celebrate, and show off different styles in animation. So throughout this document, I'm pretty open and forward with what the goals are for this project and what I want and what I can offer the artists involved, because I'm not paying people to be involved with this. So I always want people to know that if they're not being paid, they're getting something in return. And the thing that I can offer them is what promotion I have on my channels. But I think together we can make much more of a splash than we can all individually. Also, I didn't want any of the artists to feel like they were being used. That would be my absolute worst fear. So here are the rules, the constraints of the project. Now, I really love when I have lots of constraints. I find it really paralyzing to stare at a blank canvas and not know what to make, because it could be anything and there's a lot of pressure on, well, if you could make anything, why isn't it the best? There's nothing stopping you. But I think constraints really certainly help me flourish. And I really wanted to convince people that they should be a part of this project. And I think one way I tried to do that was to remove as many decisions as possible. To say, hey, I've provided, here are the constraints, here are the colors. You don't have to do any thinking other than you making what you want to make within these constraints, if that makes sense. So we need to have a title, be square, and be 1.5 seconds in duration. I experimented a lot with how long each animation should be. I did a lot of animatics. 1.5 seconds, 36 frames was what I landed on, because I think that's enough time to communicate your idea. Just enough time to communicate one idea, but not long enough that over 2 minutes of 60 of these animations that you'd start to get bored or want one animation to be over and the next one to start. And I think once you get up to 3 seconds, honestly, and I think a lot of other people's attention spans, that's a bit too much. I think 1.5 seconds, although it seems absurdly small, and a lot of the animators said how much of a challenge it was to make something for 1.5 seconds, I think you can do a lot with it, and some of the examples are absolutely incredible for 36 frames of animation. Two of the biggest influences in this project is Loop to Loop, and the other one is the Moscow Coat of Arms by Petrick. So this is the Moscow Coat of Arms project, and this has got a bunch of different artists interpreting the coat of arms of Moscow. And each one of these is 1 second long. And I really love how this is formatted. But I think because they're all interpreting something that's the exact same sort of shape and design, I think there's a fair bit less of a cognitive leap that you need to make between each one. So with all the different interpretations of love, because I didn't want to constrain people to a specific shape, it's going to take a lot more time than that. But this is definitely proof that even with just 1 second, you can communicate a lot. The other inspiration was Loop to Loop. So Loop to Loop is an animation challenge, animators from around the world creating looping animations based on a given topic and then submitting them. At the end of each theme, a top 100 posted loops are compiled and screened at a live audience at Loop in Melbourne, Australia, and at other venues throughout Australia and the world. Now, Loop to Loop is an amazing project. I go to the Sydney one as often as I can. It is such a really fun atmosphere, and the screening ends up being about a 30-minute video of just non-stop awesome animations and crazy interpretations, and you see so much different style and creativity, and it really motivated and inspired me. So I definitely recommend, if there's a loop-to-loop near you, go and check one out. And the Sydney one is hosted by Derek Lau, who did Critics Love in Project Manticore as well, another excellent human. So one of the other rules was to have a 2-word title for your shot. So this is something I did a bit differently because I really like having titles to animation and artwork, because I think it gives you an extra chance to add another layer of meaning or subtext, or I often use it as an extra joke for the project. So hopefully when you watch Lots of Love, when you see the title, you can make an assumption based on, this is going to be this type of love. Maybe imagine it in your own head, and then you're here with that artist's interpretation of that love, which maybe subverts that expectation or shows you a different way of thinking about that. And I find that sort of cognitive loop really rewarding, and I hope that comes across in the project. And then we've got colors. I selected this color palette. I went pretty broad. It includes all the primary colors, and I'd probably reduce this even more the next time I do this, because with these colors, you can pretty much make anything. I still think the project looks cohesive, but I think it could look even more cohesive if I was to restrict it to, maybe even removing these 3 colors. So it was all red, pink, and these neutral grays. I think it could be a little more striking. But for the first project, I didn't want to, really restrict people, maybe too much. And then of course, with 3D animations, you've got all the lighting in there as well. So you're going to get millions of different colors anyway. But I knew that going in. And then for the animatic, I've got a link here that just shows the format of the animation. I'd whip this up really quickly so that people could understand what I meant by having a title and then your animation, and then where you'd be credited down below, so people were sure that whenever their animation's on screen, their Instagram handle is there as well. And then the timeline. So the release date to be confirmed, aiming for April 2020. Now you might know this came out at the very end of June, so 2 months later than this, which in the scheme of things isn't too bad. And I have submissions due March 15th. I did extend this by a month, mainly because, 2 reasons. I hadn't even started mine when it was coming to the beginning of March and knew I wouldn't get a chance to. And really there's no time pressure at all for this project. So I knew I wouldn't get a chance to edit these and send them to sound design for another couple of months anyway. So everyone can have another month. And I had barely received any submissions by the beginning of March and was starting to get worried. So I gave more time, and people seem to be pretty thankful for that. And I also clarify here, if at any point you get too busy, you can jump out at any moment. I completely understand. I don't want this to be another looming deadline in your life. Or if you need help with anything, please let me know and I'll do my best to help. I put this in here because I don't want people to feel any guilt at all about not being able to follow through with a project. I wanted people to say, hey, I'd like to be involved with that. And then if they got busy and couldn't submit anything, that's fine. There's a guilt-free exit already written in here. And I sort of structured the project around that as well. So if someone dropped out, I can just make the edit shorter. There's no restriction. There's no gap that I need to fill because things need to flow in a certain way. That's completely fine. And then some other stuff that I'll be organizing the edit, music, and sound design, and then roll out some specifications of what I'll be doing on the days leading up to the launch, and then what I'd want from the other animators to help make this as big of a launch as possible. And then just last page is a thank you and a link to this spreadsheet that has all the people already involved. So this was a spreadsheet that I kept adding to once people said yes, hopefully trying to encourage people to join if they saw, oh, I really like that animator and they're part of this project, I should join as well. And you'll see I got to 85 people, the total amount of people that said yes, they would contribute something here. 60 people made it into the project, and you can see submission complete is not ticked for every single person here, and that's fine. I knew people would back out. That's why I asked more than I thought. And I asked even more people than even said yes. So I think I reached out to a fair few people more than this. I got a lot of people that I just got no responses from. That's fine, I understand. The same reason you send out a lot of resumes, because you don't always hear back. I got a few people that just straight up said, no, they were too busy, which I love. I have 100% respect for that. I think we should all be more comfortable with saying no to things if you're too busy for a project or even not interested. The sooner you say no, the better it is for everyone. And this was also a way for people to submit their love titles and just to make sure that people weren't overlapping too much and pick the exact same title. Now, with the people I reached out to, obviously the video can't be infinitely long, so I can't reach out to every single animator in the world, although I would like to. So I did lean more heavily, especially because this is the first collaborative project, on my closer friends that I do know and have worked with, and a lot of Australian talent that don't have as much recognition as they should internationally. And because Australia, like most motion design industries, tends to be heavily white male based, I did make sure to reach out to a lot more people from diverse backgrounds, because that's the whole point of the project, is to show a diverse range of animations and hopefully by diverse animators as well. And that's something that I want to push more and more with each Project Manticore, just getting more diversity in animation and artist out there as well. So I mostly reached out to these artists on Instagram, and the response to the brief was overwhelmingly very positive. Way more people said yes than I thought. I originally was hoping for at least 30 animators, and we got 85, and that turned into 60. So I was very happy. So from there, I got my first submission in January, and that was from Josh Edwards, a former art director at Buck. He did Butterfly Love, and he is definitely the most organized person I've ever worked with. He really whipped me into shape when a few of my project structures were not, let's just say, optimal. So no wonder he was the first to submit. And then the last submission I got was in late May, well into the sound design process. I think more than 100 days after the original due date. Now, I don't want to embarrass anyone by calling them out, but let's just call them Liz S. No, that's too obvious. Elle Smith, let's say. But the majority of the animations came in April time. It was really fun and exciting to see a couple in my inbox every morning, because I'd seen what title they'd picked, and in my head I was like, how are they going to animate that? And then everyone surprised me and was even better than I expected. And I had high expectations. So some trends that I noticed is that we had 3 animations that were fish-based. I don't know why that is. Maybe there was something in the water. And we also had 2 animations that were cat-based. And both of these cat-based animations were both about a cat not reciprocating affection from a human. And I think that just speaks to the quality of cats in general. Now, coming up with the title took a long time. Here is my list of title options, and you can see we get down to 95 before I figure out Lots of Love, and that's the one I stuck with. So I added to this document over months and didn't really get something I was happy with until at the very bottom. And this is how I like to work with titles and really anything, even if I'm sketching, just to come up with a whole lot of ideas. Good ideas, bad ideas, that doesn't matter. They're all going on the list. And then from there, we can figure out what's good and what's not. And yeah, it took me months to find Lots of Love, and I'm really happy with that. I think it suits really well. Before that, some of my favorite ones was More Love is Required, or Making Love, or Love, a Love Story. Some of these were not good. Let's have a look at these. The Love Show, The Love, 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 Love. Just Lovely. Actually, Lovely Love isn't bad. Maybe there were some good names on here. So don't feel bad if you have to go through a lot of bad ideas before you get to a good one, because it'll be worth it. Now, when designing the titles, I fell in love with this typeface called Hatton, which I use on pretty much everything now. I'm probably overusing, so please call me out if you think I'm using it too much. But it's just really nice. And then I spent most of the time exploring different gradients using this color palette. And I kind of wanted it to feel like maybe 80s love novel that just looks, I don't know, a bit cheesy, a bit cinematic. And then I just designed the credits and most of the title cards, but mainly experimenting with these gradients. And I really love these ones that go from like teal through blue all the way to pink. But I found the text with the red and pink background gradient really worked the best. And then each individual title card would be based on the color of the animation involved. And then I'd use the same format for the titles as well. Now to the mistakes I made along the way, because there are a few, but I've learnt, I think, from all of them. Number one was communicating. This was by far the biggest project I've done. At the peak, I was speaking to 85 different artists, and I'm not used to emailing that many people. And I was communicating with these people through Instagram, some through Messenger, some through email, some through WhatsApp, some from Slack. And it was chaotic. It was way too much. It was not organized properly. It took a lot of spreadsheets to organize separately, and you didn't even see half the spreadsheets that I prepared for this project. So next time, I'm definitely just going to create a private Slack channel, keep all the information in there so that I'm not answering the same question to the same people. I did try to push everyone towards one email thread towards the end of the project, but even still, there were some people that I couldn't get emails from, and it was not great. It could have been done a lot better. So that's what I'll be doing next time. Now, number two is the aspect ratio. So you'll remember from the document, I said 1080 by 1080, which is 1:1. And I thought I'd do that because, hey, that's going to look great on Instagram, where the majority of the views are going to come from, and it'll look fine on YouTube and Vimeo. People understand square things are sometimes in that format. And then I thought, because it'll probably over a minute on IGTV, it'll be in a vertical format. It'll just have black bars on the top and bottom, which is how you'd full screen a square video anyway, so that would be fine. I was very wrong. Instagram has a way of setting up IGTV videos, which I found quite frustrating. I'm going to show you a few examples on my test account. So when you upload a square video to IGTV, you'd think it'd add a black bar at the top and bottom so you can see the full thing in the middle. No, it crops the sides off. So it removed pretty much half of the animation and a lot of the titles as well. So that didn't work. So I thought maybe I'll upload it in a vertical format. I'll just add the black bars at the top and bottom myself. That'll be fine, right? No. Because when you preview that in the feed, I can't show you that on the desktop version, but it previews an IGT video at 5:4. So there was black bars at the top and bottom of the preview in the feed, which just looks like I've uploaded the wrong format and makes me look like an idiot. And I knew I'd get heaps of messages from artists involved saying, dude, you uploaded it in the wrong format, you got to change it. And then you've got the 1:1 format, which this all started with, to view on your profile. That was fine. I had no issues with that. So I had to make it look good in 4:5 and 9:16 as well. And I tried uploading it just as a carousel, but I didn't think that worked either because I think people would just skip through the different sections. So my solution to do that was to upload it in 9:16, a vertical format, but add these borders to the edge of the video so that it looks deliberate in the feed. And then over, I think about 20 to 30 seconds, they just sort of fade off. So it looks like how you'd expect a full screen square video to look at. Now, I didn't find this out until way too late. I should have done a lot more testing a lot earlier. It's not a good solution. I don't know a better solution. I'll think of something else for next year. A different format, most likely. And this issue also led to maybe the biggest issue with the video, which was in the final upload, this vertical version where I've added the borders, I rendered out this version with 2 of the duplicate audio tracks over the top. So what that means is the audio sounds really distorted and it peaks pretty much constantly and doesn't sound great. And I didn't notice that because I was listening to my phone speaker and not paying enough attention as I should. But that was the final version that I went live with. And I didn't realize that I'd made this mistake until I got messages from the sound designer saying, hey, something's wrong. So I had, as soon as the video launched, a very panicky, let's say hour of me trying to figure out what went wrong, why it sounds like that, and should I take the video down, re-render it, and then re-upload it, and try to explain what had happened. But by then there were so many people sharing the video and different links to it, and I didn't want to cause so many broken links and lose those views and momentum, so it was just too late. I had to leave it. But the other version that I've uploaded to YouTube and Vimeo and everywhere else, that has the great, clear, crisp audio, so that sounds great. But it just sucks that the first version that a lot of people saw was on YouTube with the not so great audio. And while we're here, you should definitely hire QB Sound or QB Sound Studio, they go by on Instagram, because they do so much awesome work. They do great stuff. Please don't judge them based on that distorted video that I uploaded. Their stuff is awesome, honestly. I'm going to be using them again. They did great work and they were great to work with. This isn't sponsored. I just need to make amends because I messed up. And last but not least, my final mistake is that I spelled Johan Eriksson's Instagram handle wrong on the final edit. I'm sorry, Johan. I'm really sorry. Johan is an awesome animator. He's at Buck, New York at the moment. We've done collabs in the past. Here's him animating one of my designs. and I made a video of how I animated this design of his on my channel as well. He's great. His name is spelled with 2 S's, not 2 Ks. And I would have figured that out a lot easier if I showed the final animation to the animators before I posted it. The reason I didn't do that is because I wanted to surprise everyone. I wanted their first view of the video to be with everyone else. And it wasn't worth it. I should have just put it out there so people can check it. So I'll be doing that one next time as well. So what am I going to do with Project Manticore going forward? Well, there'll be another one out next year, Project Manticore 2021, official name to be decided, but I'm at the very beginning stages of planning that. And one of the things I want to do, not necessarily with next year's one, but for the ones coming up, I want to experiment with a format with the amount of animators and artists involved. I'd like to do one with a lot more animators and maybe one with a lot less as well. I've gotten a lot of comments of people wanting to be involved with the next one, which is really awesome. That's really great to hear. And I would like to maybe do one day where it's a completely open submission where that anyone who wants to be involved can be involved. But when I do that, I'm opening myself up to a lot more decisions that have to be made about curating the project and quality control. Do I let all the submissions in, even if some of them are, inappropriate or long or just not very good? And I don't really want to disappoint people by not including their work. So that's a bit trickier for me. There'll be ways to mitigate that by having a lot more constraints or even having the duration of each submission be really short. I really like what Buck did in the end of this iMac Pro animation, where in this sequence here, it looks like they've gotten pretty much everyone in the studio to design a couple of frames based on a pretty constrained animation template. And every frame just looks awesome. But that's not much of a showcase for the artist, really. I'm not sure many people are going to want to be involved to say, I designed that one frame of that animation, and you can kind of see my name at the bottom. That doesn't really share as much of the artist as I want this project to have. So I haven't found a really good idea to include every single person in a collaborative project, but if you have any ideas or examples, leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them because I want to make this as inclusive as possible. And hopefully by doing one every single year, I can try a whole bunch of different formats and hopefully achieve that. I'd also like to animate one with maybe fewer artists that's a little more directed and produced at my end, but that would also mean a lot more time that I have to spend and probably more time and involvement from the artists as well. But it would definitely be more cohesive and maybe have more of an impact. Andrew Vuko made this Something for Nothing collaboration, which is absolutely awesome. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about with something on this scale. I mean, he got the absolute best of the best to work on this project, and you can really tell a lot of time and dedication and planning was put into this. So maybe something along those lines. But I do feel that lots of love and the format of Manticore 2020 does have a lot of advantages and hit a real sweet spot of showing off the individual artists and them being able to show their individual skills, and also not being a huge elaborate project that sucks up so much time in the production and the direction and things like that. So maybe I'll do a similar one next year, but obviously a different theme and different artists as well. That's one thing I'm pretty sure about. I think next year I want to include completely new artists because there's just so many artists that I really want to share and elevate their work. So I'm still in the initial stages of next year. If you've got any suggestions, things you want to see, things you definitely don't want me to change, let me know in the comments. It would be a huge help. To discover the best ways to learn motion design, I've created a short playlist of videos that I think you'll enjoy if you've made it this far. Please like the video and consider subscribing if you'd like more of these videos every week. I'll see you in the next video.